Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. This is my dad, Ted.
Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Knightsky. An unspoken expectation can never be met. I must say that 10 times a week and sometimes 10 times a day, which is why we're going to dust off some old processes and iterate them to get us thinking about this pinch point of life. Now, a pinch point is anything that goes on that creates a pinch. Now, it's not a literal pinch to your body. It's a pinch between gears that stops things from moving. So, why is it that we are so easily disappointed? Well, what we need to do is really reflect upon our role in that disappointment with others. When we are feeling disappointed with others, I mean, how many times do you say to yourself, they should have known better? Well, what if they didn't? What if they didn't because you assumed? Because you never shared what you needed or wanted? Because you sat silently stewing about how ignorant someone else is about an expectation you have for them that you have never spoken? Now, here's another quote I want you to start to think about. They can't hear your thoughts, and you can't hear theirs. So anytime you see the motors of courage turning in someone else's eyes, you need to say, hey, an unspoken expectation can't be met, and I can't hear your thoughts, so please tell me. And the inverse is true as well. People need to ask you that question. When someone disappoints you, you need to ask yourself, did I speak my expectations and my ideas? Or did I assume that they would anticipate my needs and am now disappointed that they didn't hear me through telepathy? Telepathy doesn't exist, so we need a process. If it did, you'd be really nervous after taking a stroll through my noggin. Okay, anyways, before we get too far, let's go through our weekly reminders. What is leadership? Well, leadership is the simple recognition that you have influence. A leader is anyone with influence over another person, and every single day we are acting in ways that is modeling for others how to act, respond, to do, to see the world, and how to think about being a leader, because leaders are constantly wondering and worrying about their impact. Now, there's also followers, and followers are people who follow the CARE principle. They collaborate. They own their situation. They're resilient, and they are engaged. Followers look for the guidelines in order to be successful. But as we're going to talk about today, good followers also have processes put in place by leadership so that they can seek clarification around what's expected for them. Because an unspoken expectation can never be met, and sometimes those assumptions of leaders create frustrated followers. Which is why leaders need to be empathetic. Every single day wondering what it would be like to be the people around them, what they need, what it feels like, and what it would be like to be them in that situation. And most importantly, one of my favorite ones, especially for parents, is what would I need if I were them at that stage of my life? Which leads us to reflection, the constant self-reflection. Every single day asking myself what went well, what would I change, how did I learn, how did I grow, and where do I need to apply my strengths? That allows us then to be buffalo leaders, people who actively and intentionally, with intensity, charge into the storms that they're facing, never walking away from them, but proactively running to them because we are optimistic by nature that we're going to be able to get through them. So, let's dive into this idea of expectations, because understanding the need for clear expectations is really, really important. As a matter of fact, GALLUP has this cool tool that I love and I talk about a bunch, the Q12. I mean, it's 12 questions that measure the engagement of the person on the other end. It's not a satisfaction survey, it's engagement, and I love it. However, there's a disturbing trend taking place across the United States right now, and it goes to question number 1. And question number 1 is, I know what is expected of me at work. Listen to this. 10 years ago, 59% of the people in the United States strongly agreed with the fact that they understood what was expected of them. Today, in 2025, it's down to 45%. Less than half the people that you are walking around with in the world do not understand what's expected of them at work. And the expectations only become clear to employees when they are collaboratively set and prioritized with employees, aligned with what the team aims to achieve, regularly discussed, and considered alongside workload and well-being. And today, we're going to focus on that fourth topic, regularly discussed. And the reason is this. I don't think we're doing a good job, whether you are in a boardroom or a classroom, a hallway, or an office. I don't think we're doing a good job making sure people understand what's expected of them. I think we're doing a pretty good job assuming what's expected of everyone, but we're not doing a good job allowing people the opportunity to have choice and voice. So what's going on here? Well, we are making assumptions about people understanding their expectations. We are failing in communication when we launch new things, and as life and work becomes more predictable, well, then we find that. However, life and work is not predictable. It's unpredictable, and there's a lot going on. And as a result, people don't necessarily know what's expected of them. So we're missing the chance to seek clarity for them. Ooh, Teddy, clarity. Yep, how clear is it for everyone to understand what is expected of them? Now, I struggle with this question personally. And the reason I struggle with it isn't because it's a bad question or I don't understand the question, because it's pretty clear to me what's expected of me, and it's because of a personal habit that I have. Now, I struggle with the question because I don't understand why it's low. I get stuck empathetically understanding how anyone could go through their life not asking, hey, what am I supposed to do? And when I say I get stuck empathetically, like, I don't understand how you can't do it. However, too many people are rightfully worried about the perception of the person in front of them, and as a result, they simply won't ask for direction, clarification, or support. And that frustrates me because I've really never been that way. Okay, now, as you know, before I get too far, I have to tell a story to guide us. What the hell is wrong with you? Is how the conversation started out when I was laying on the ground in the middle of the road. I was an 18-year-old and I was working as a painter and a carpenter on a crew. I had worked for a decorating company and kept getting moved around the crew because I worked quick, I minded my own business, and I had a lot of fun at work. People wanted to work with the skinny little soccer kid. I would grab my turquoise and pink Varney fanny pack every morning, load it up with AA batteries and mixtapes, my Walkman, put in my headphones, and I'd set to work in my yellow Ford Escort station wagon. Now, painting and carpentry are the perfect jobs for a kid with attention deficit hyperactivity gifts like me. Never the same work, always learning, a little independence, and some teamwork. People around me, but I still had to do my own job at my own pace, and I had fun. Now, my boss owned the company, and we tended to work a lot on very large homes and sometimes mansions. I really liked the job, and we worked on a lot of older homes, inside and outside. And I was actually able to get a friend of mine in high school to come work with me, and we worked a lot together. Now, many days, we would just simply get dropped off and our boss would forget about us. So we'd be sitting on the curb with our buckets of equipment, drinking soda, usually from one of the owners who felt bad for the college kids. However, when we got dropped off at the site, everything we needed was always there. One day, we got dropped off at a house, and the foreman is there and says, hey, we're scraping all day. Now, weirdly, I loved scraping, which is not really what a lot of painters think. It was therapeutic and so satisfying when you'd scrape off a 10-inch piece of paint. I especially liked when we'd come across dried out or rotted wood, because then a carpenter would have to teach me how to fix it. Anyway, one day we get dropped off, and there are 30-foot ladders and a note. We're standing on the main street of a small little town, and the scrap of paper was there, and it said, use the scraper and then prime the second and third floor windows. My friend got a little spook and said, I'm going to drive over to a different job. You can do this one by yourself because you like to scrape. This job was in an old downtown area. It was a 3-story commercial building where there were apartments up on the top and a commercial store down below. There was a sidewalk and then the road. Like, it was the building, 6 feet, curb, road. So I read the note, and being a typical 18-year-old man, I really wasn't a man. I was a young man. I was like, well, I got to get up there, and I got to get to work. There was a single orange cone, and the storefront at the bottom was at the base of a huge hill. Now, I climbed up the ladder, and I got to the top of the ladder, and when I looked down, I was a little spooked. I had never been that high before, but I was also stunned by a few other things that happened, and one of them was the amount of people who walked near the ladder or under it. Like, I wasn't even up there. And I was scraping away up on the top, and I had my little cone on the left side of the ladder, which faced the hill, and I just kept working all day. I was up and down that ladder a million times to move it just over a few feet so I could safely scrape and prime. I took my lunch break and got back to it. And I just got up to the top of the ladder with my scraper, and my spidey senses kind of kicked in, like something didn't feel right, and for some reason, I felt I was in danger. I looked up the giant hill. It was like a half a mile away, and there was an 8 or 9-year-old kid biking, and he was coming barreling down the hill, pedaling as fast as he could down the sidewalk. And I thought, like, hey, this kid's coming right at me. He was riding on the sidewalk and quickly coming at me. Now, I was on the 3rd story, and I'm serious. This kid was coming at me like a cannonball. So I realized I needed to get moving. So I started down the ladder as fast as I could. I was at the top of the building. I'm above the 3rd floor. I was looking into the 2nd story window as I was coming down, and the tenant must have seen the pure look of terror on my face because she came to the window just in time to see the kid on the bike hit the ladder. There I was, on the 2nd floor on the ladder. The ladder rapidly started to slip off, banged off the curb, and started sliding down the building. And I began trying to weirdly run back up the ladder to stay close to the building. And the ladder was entering the main street. I heard a car's tire screech, and I felt like I was in slow motion. I got to the top of the ladder just as it slammed to the ground, and I fell hard and flipped back into the road. Now, weirdly, I never let go of my razor-sharp scraper, and when I hit the ground and fell into the road, I drove that scraper right into my thigh. I laid there on my back, staring into the sky, and weirdly relieved. The only thing that was hurting was my leg, and it was throbbing because I had just stabbed myself in the leg. I was about to stand up when a man stood over me and said, "What the hell's wrong with you?" It was my boss. His look quickly changed as he noticed the blood all over my leg and then asked me if I was okay. Kind of a typical old guy response in that type of a situation, right? Criticism and then care. As he picked me up, a police car pulled up and the little guy on the bike shot away. However, the 2nd floor lady came out and chased him down, grabbed that little sucker fish by the back of the neck and brought him back. Everyone had witnessed this. Everybody downtown was standing outside in the street, and they were all shouting at the little boy. I looked around, and the only thing that didn't get disturbed was the single flippin' highway cone. I mean, the ladder's down, and this kid drove right past that little highway cone. As I sat there, dazed and amazed at my luck, my boss put me in his car and drove me to my doctor's office. I came out of the doctor's office with a huge bandage on my leg and a fresh poke in the arm from a tetanus shot and an ice pack on my head. My boss looked terrified as I came out. He asked me if I was okay, and I said, yeah, I'm fine. My head hurts, and I don't know, it's kind of a weird experience there. But then he drove me back to the job. Not to work, but to talk. We walked over, and he asked me what had happened. I told him, and then he asked, where's all of the equipment? And I said, this is all I had. I told him all of that, and then he said, this wasn't supposed to have happened. Now, how was this not supposed to be happening? He said, well, there's supposed to have been multiple sawhorses here to block the people in the traffic. You shouldn't have gotten on that ladder until all the safety equipment was here. I don't know where Kurt is. Kurt was the foreman. And there's supposed to be multiple highway cones here, so you can see this from a long way away. And how I wasn't supposed to start until all that stuff was there, I have no idea. Again, I didn't know what I was supposed to do or was not supposed to do, and I was used to just showing up at job sites. But an unspoken expectation can never be met. And that's when he said, Ted, there were supposed to be sawhorses, there were supposed to be, and then he looked at me and he said, but I guess you wouldn't just know that, would you? And that's the first time I learned the idea of an unspoken expectation can never be met. I did what I always did. I just got to work with whatever was waiting for me at the job scene. He put his hand on my shoulder, he opened up his wallet, he handed me $50, and he told me to take the next day off, go get myself some beer, and go to the beach and recover tomorrow and for the 3-day paid weekend, and it was all on him. I remember all of this because, 1, I almost died, 2, I stabbed myself, and 3, I was only 18 years old, so it actually used to cost about $50 for a case of beer. Okay, I shouldn't have said that. Anyways, he never spoke the expectations to me. However, I have some responsibility in this because I made assumptions. I was almost a goner. And whose fault was it? Well, I think it's his and mine. He should have made certain that I had what I needed to do on the job, and I should have had the tools to give feedback on jobs and the ability to ask questions. But we never had that type of a relationship because there was never such a process. There was no opportunity to say, hey, here's what went well on the job and here's what didn't. And before I start the next job, should I have? Or is there anything we should know if we're working in commercial areas? I never had that opportunity. I just showed up. I never wanted to look stupid. I certainly didn't want him upset with me. And I was just going to keep going about my day. However, I could spin myself into these cycles of being angry at him all the time because I would do jobs and then he'd come and he'd criticize us, but he'd criticize us on things he had never told us. So I would get myself really worked up and mad at him, and then he would come back around and he'd say, hey, sorry, I forgot to tell you this, but here's what you need to do next time. And I'd think, next time? I spent 8 hours doing it the wrong way this time. Whew. Why do we do that to each other? And how do we do that? How do we start to speak the expectations so these weird cycles stop? Well, the process is an oldie but a goodie. It's plus, delta, and wondering. Early on, my very first season of the podcast, I talked about plus deltas. And now I want to break it down for you again. Now, many of you have been through my trainings and heard me speak about this tool in those trainings, or you've used the tool at one of our trainings and you've seen the tool. However, I really believe that this tool is our gateway to cleaning up Q1 on the Q12 and for the whole country, because people don't know what's expected of them. And the only way to understand what's expected of them is to give them voice so that they can comfortably ask, hey, I feel this way. What do I need to know? And to positively reinforce it and provide feedback and different tactics to use to support me or you in those jobs. We have to create safe conditions so that people have that, whether you are in a boardroom or a classroom. We've got to start to employ this so that we can go forward and understand what's expected of us. So what is it? Well, it's a simple sheet of paper. You draw a line right down the middle. On the left-hand side, you put a plus. On the right-hand side, you put a triangle. And then halfway down on the right-hand side, you draw another line and you put a question mark. I always leave lots of room for the plus because great leaders will be creating the conditions that others want to reinforce. Deltas, well, there should only be a handful of things that we want to do different. And wonderings, hopefully we've done a good job, but if we do have questions, we get them answered. So, what is the plus? The plus is very simple. It's what I like and want more of. The delta, well, it's true delta, Greek, the triangle. This is something I need changed. This one is always so hard for people. It is what needs to change, and it's your ability to advocate for clarity. And wonderings is the ability to seek clarity and just simply ask, hey, I wonder what if. I wonder if. I wonder when. I wonder how. That way, you don't walk away with a narrative that's incorrect, start down the wrong path, get frustrated, and then say things like, I don't know what's expected of me around here. Okay. Every interaction, presentation, lesson should be followed with a plus delta wondering. Why? Well, the positive side allows me to have my behaviors reinforced. If I'm doing it well and you like what we're doing, then I'm going to do more of that because you're going to say more, more, more. The delta part is your ability to advocate for change with, and keyword is advocate for change with a solution or suggestion. And the wondering is your ability to seek understanding. So what are the responsibilities? Well, the responsibilities of we want to do more of what is wanted. We want to change what can be controlled, and we want an answer to all of the questions. Plus, more of what we want, delta, change what can be controlled, and wondering, answering all of the questions. So here are some rules, just to remind you, and or to teach you. The first rule of the plus delta is that we always do it on paper. The very first year or two of our culture, we do it on paper. People get weird about it. You should not email a survey to people. That's intrusive. That's something that comes to me that I have to do. If I get it when I walk in the room and I understand what the outcomes are, then I will fill it out on paper. And the reason we do it on paper is because we want it to remain truly anonymous. When we're all done with the comments, the plus, deltas, and wonderings, we want to type up all the comments into a single document and share it and publish it as soon as possible. Now, this is a step that sometimes is being forgotten when we employ this strategy. Why we want to do this is because if people are truly to understand their expectations, they're going to see what others expect from the pluses. They're going to see where others are seeking new ideas or change in the deltas. And they're also going to realize that I might not be the only one who needed more clarity in the wonderings. And the culture starts to define what's expected. And it answers all of our questions. Well, Ted, what happens if, and this is my favorite question after leaders have employed this the first time, or teachers in their classrooms, or doctors in their boardrooms. Ted, what happens if people are rude or unkind on the delta side? That is a great question, because too many times people see the delta side not as a delta, as a change. They see that as a gripe side. Well, here's what I don't like. I never asked that question. We don't ask that question. Satisfaction is almost impossible in a collaborative setting. And the reason is because we're focusing on engagement. Do you have what you need, not do you have what you want? And those are two very different things. I can only control what you need to do the job, not what you want, because I can't do that for all of the different people that I work with, and neither can you. So if people are rude or unkind on the delta side, well, speak your expectations. Some people see the delta as an opportunity to articulate dissatisfaction or frustration, take pot shots, or write in editorials. That is not the purpose. Did you hear the firmness in my voice? Because I mean it. That is not the purpose. As a matter of fact, those types of comments, they're not even helpful. And when you publish the courageless shots that people take at you, you should put in parentheses behind it, N period H period N parentheses. And you know what that stands for? Not helpful. The culture needs to see, even though they took a shot, even though it's not helpful, even though it's a dissatisfaction or an editorial, the culture needs to see that you as a leader can't do anything with that. I don't like the blood that runs through your body. Well, it's not helpful. What am I supposed to do with it? So should it be? Now, I get this question all of the time, and I want you to remember something. Before we get into what it should be, I want you to remember that a behavior tolerated is a behavior reinforced. And if you allow people to make their own rules on a process, well, they will. So call out the misbehaviors, because then people will understand what's expected. So let's play this out. When you launch a lesson, a strategy, or deploy a process, when you meet with other people, even when you're just communicating something, the first thing that should happen is an opportunity for them to have voice when you are done. Hey, I like this. I'd suggest this change. I wonder if this is the best time. Did you hear that? Hey, I like this. I'd suggest this change. I wonder if this is the best time. That's a plus, delta, wondering. High performing, easy to answer, and opportunity to do something with. The more frequently you provide this process, the greater clarity in your organization. The more improving you will do, and the more you'll understand your own expectations, and the more you will see the system aligned. Now, that is if one critical thing is done by the leader. You respond to the positives, you react to the changes and employ things that you can, and you review the wonderings and provide answers to all of those wonderings with clarity, kindness, and quickness. People will only understand what's expected of them if they have voice and choice. They will understand when there is a process for them in place to find out what has to happen, and they will be engaged when they see a response. Now, who has to change in this process? Well, first, who's ever collecting it? The leader. They need to make adjustments, meet people where they are at, and seek crystal clear understanding. Then, as a follower, we must engage in the opportunity we have to speak up and support our own understanding of our own expectations. This, friends, is a buffalo process. You have to charge into the process, you have to engage in the process, and you must grow from the process. One word of caution: don't quit on this process when you don't get a lot of feedback. Many times what I see is people on their own team stop providing feedback because there's nothing to talk about. Why? You're in a stride and you're meeting needs. People have clarity and we're doing all right. But as soon as that feeling of comfort falls into place, you need to feel really uncomfortable, because the moment something does go sideways and you decide we don't even need that process anymore, we're doing great, guess what? If you don't have that paper process, you'll drop like me on that ladder because no one will be able to warn you. This process needs little explanation. It needs a lot of energy on your part to help close the gap on expectations. If people are unclear, they'll do what they think. And doing what they think, well, that'll lead to conflict and suffering. Maybe not fall off a ladder type of pain, but emotional stress, disengagement, and frustration, and the ability to say, I do not know what's going on around here. An unspoken expectation can never be met. And this goes for leadership. This process allows leaders to understand the needs of the followers, of their colleagues, and of your students. And why does this matter? Well, we have to give others a process so that they can seek understanding of what is expected. If we as leaders are running around assuming everyone knows what they're doing, well, we have a problem. When 55% of the people you work with articulate that they don't understand what's expected of us, well, we have a problem. If we as leaders are running around assuming everyone knows what they're doing, we have a problem. If we as followers don't have the ability to seek clarity by asking for clarity in the wonderings or asking for a process in the delta, then what do? What do we have? We have people who don't know what's expected of them. Final thought here for all of us. On the deltas, I really want to make this clear because for some reason, every organization I work with, it tends to devolve back into potshots and not helpful types of comments. So let me reinforce this with you so you can reinforce it within your own culture to help people understand what's expected. The deltas. These are not opportunities to discuss what is unsavory or you don't like. It is the opportunity to share changes. If you have a delta, it should come with a suggestion. For instance, my delta after slamming to the ground would have been, please make certain I have all the equipment and a checklist for that equipment before I start a job that I've never done before. Did you hear that? I find too many people write in the deltas, thanks for having me do a job that almost killed me. Not helpful. Nothing we can do. What does help is please make sure I have the equipment and a checklist before I start the job. And as a leader, I can easily do that. This is opposed to what some people do, which is the delta, you set me up for failure, you're not helpful. Let's be helpful in our deltas and suggestions. And again, if we tolerate bad behavior, we are reinforcing it. Now, did my boss set me up for failure? A little bit. But does he grow from being reminded and re-guilted? No. Those types of deltas just lead to resentment and a paranoia. For the people taking the time to ask the questions, it shouldn't happen. As a matter of fact, the number one reason people stop giving the plus delta wonderings is out of the fact that they themselves have never made this point clear. The point about the deltas. We get afraid of them. And remember, folks, candor is kindness. So let's knock it off. Let's use the plus deltas and wonderings for what they're supposed to be. The opportunity for improvement, clarity, so that we all understand what we are expected to do. Okay, here it is. We all own the fact that we don't know what's expected. We all own it. But we are also afraid to ask. And the work and the world is changing fast. And people need to have choice and voice. So people need to seek clarity. And we need a process. Plus delta wondering. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't understand in the wonderings. And finally, my deltas. Could you please put in place a checklist process to ensure that I know what equipment I need before I start my job? I mean, what kind of buffalo world would it be if we didn't find ways for others to advocate for their own engagement? And what type of leaders are we if we don't lead people into the post-storm moment with a process? Well, I'll tell you what we are. We're buffaloes, and we're going to take this on. And we are not going to work in an environment where no one knows what's expected of them. Because here's what's expected. When you hear thunder, turn and face it. When you feel the lightning, be energized by it. And when you see the rain, charge. So let's do some smart thinking. Describe how you can support people understanding what's expected of them. List where you could use the plus delta wonderings process to clarify expectations. And finally, describe your gaps in your own understanding of what's expected of you. That's it. That's the Smart Thinking Podcast. Hey, as always, thank you so much for listening. And please help me help others by forwarding this podcast on to other people who say things like they don't know what's expected of them, or does anybody know what's going on around here? Take a second to forward this podcast off to leaders, people who might not understand the process or even the fact that the majority of the world is walking around not understanding what's expected of them. Do the research, do the diligence, and advocate for yourself and some common sense. And finally, And as always, thank you to the Well Pennies for their great music and Golden Bear Studios from Des Moines, Iowa. Make sure to visit their website and download all of the Well Pennies music on your favorite music platform. Okay, let's close out here with a couple of final ideas. After the Spider-Man type of mindset that I got coming down the building on a ladder moment that I had, I really learned a good lesson. I mean, never do something without understanding what it is that needs to be done, what tools I need to use, and how to safely accomplish the task. I worked in remodeling and the trades for a long time, and amongst lots of great men and women who had tons of great sayings for me, sayings that reinforced expectations. One of my favorite ones was when I was being trained by an elder gentleman who was a carpenter, and he would always say to me, Ted, measure twice, cut once. I hear that in my brain now when I'm in my wood shop at home building a bookcase or a cabinet or a table. Every time, right before I cut, I think to myself, did I measure twice? It was an expectation. It was a cliche. He had another one that said, hey, any jackass can kick down a barn, but only a carpenter can build one. So take your time. He also said to me one time, he caught me painting in a bathroom and he looked in and my face was all flushed. He said, hey, anytime you find yourself in a small space, if your face is tingling when you're staining boards, it's time to open the window. I remember that one a lot as well, many times when I'm painting in small spaces. And finally, working safely may get old, but so do those who practice it. That was one of my favorites. And one of my other favorites I just thought of as well is if you don't think it's safe, Ted, it's probably not. Final point for understanding of expectations. I have some questions for you. Do you have a culture of positive reinforcement? Did you remember that the single greatest way to get people to shift their behaviors is through positive reinforcement? Do you reinforce what is expected? Do you celebrate it? Do you showcase those expectations for others to see? Because in the absence of reinforcement, you will get what you've always gotten. If that's a good thing, well, then reinforce it. If it's a bad thing, speak up, put in place a process. What's going well? What do we need to change? And what wonderings do you have? If you're giving or receiving instructions, it's the plus side of the plus delta wondering that will make the biggest difference. Because you will give the formula to the leaders. You will give the formula to the teachers. You will give the formula to who's ever running whatever's in front of you. And if you want the leader to create more clarity, reinforce every time they do something that provides more clarity. And put it on the plus. And when they don't, add a delta. Like, please provide a clear outline of the expectations for us. Or a wondering. I'm wondering if we could see the outcomes more clearly before we start this job. Before we begin this lesson. Before I begin my learning. Are you hearing this? It's genuine smart thinking language and buffalo behavior. I mean, we are all responsible for three things: our happiness, our engagement, and our choices. So get happy, be engaged, and make the choice to support other people as well as yourself by simply employing a process. Otherwise, you'll be laying there after a panic attack with a colleague standing over you asking, what the hell's wrong with you? So here's what you need to do. Advocate, own it, and charge.
Hey, put the world away. Fight a little longer until you feel okay. 'Cause there's nothing I can do when everything's the matter and there's no one left like you. Wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Heal your heart with rhythm and blues. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la. Don't you wanna feel it too? Why do you delay your fickle eyes emotion? I know it feels that way. But hope's a honey in the air, a melody around you and no one else is there. Wait for the sunlight. Love or leave, what life would I lose? wanna feel it too?